Hannah, and welcome to Hannah's Art Box. We are going to create this drawing today using a technique called oil resist. I'm also going to show you a really cool way to create a watercolor effect without using watercolors. We're going to use water-based markers and a reusable plastic bag. So get your materials ready. We're going to go through them right now. Please share your results with me when you're done. I always love to see your work when you're finished. So let's get started. Okay, get your paper ready. I'm using multimedia paper. You can use any paper you have at home. Next, your oil pastels or crayons. I'm using oil pastels today. You can also use, if you would like, some colored pencils. They are all oil-based, so any one of the three will work for this project. Next, you will need a cup of water with a small brush to help us create our water color effect. Next, we have water-based markers. I have green and blue, and you will need a Ziplock type of bag or piece of foil. Starting with our brown pastel, we are going to find the center of our paper and mark it with a tiny little dot. So tiny that you can't even see it. All right. Next, we are going to start at one edge of our paper, going across through that little dot that we just made to the other side of the paper. I'm going back, making it a little thicker and darker because I don't want any white to be showing through. Go back and forth. I'm going to make the same shape right above it. Again, making it thicker and darker with no little dots, no paper coming through. And as soon as I'm done with that, I'm going to start making some vertical lines, and you want to create them equally spaced apart as best as you can. Now you're going to choose two green pastels or crayons, light green and a dark green. Starting with the light green, I am going to make an oval shape with a little triangle cut into it, almost like a pizza that someone took the slice. And we are going to make several of those and then fill them in. Now you're going to notice that my ovals or lily pads, they're not lily pads yet, are getting narrower, smaller as I go higher on my paper. What we're trying to do here is to create the illusion of perspective. By making some of the lily pads smaller, higher on the paper, we make it look like they are far away. And the ones that are closer to us, we're drawing them larger. And some are even are off the paper, just to create some interest. Now that I'm done with my light green, I'm going to switch to my dark green. I'm going to outline the shape and add a few little lines inside to make it look like a lily pad. And I'm outlining all the lily pads I drew. Moving on to our lily flowers, I am choosing two colors. I have a pink and a yellow. I am going to start with the yellow, making U shapes on top of each one of the lily pads. U shapes and filling it in with other yellow lines. Then I'm taking the pink and adding some in the center. And I'm going to repeat this step with all the other lilies, remembering to make the lilies smaller as we move up on my paper. Using my dark green pastel, I'm going to make some vertical lines on the bottom of my paper. The lines on the edges are longer, and the ones in the center of the paper are shorter. I am adding to the illusion of perspective to make the center of my drawing the focal point. I am starting with the dark pastel, and when I'm done, I will be adding the light green pastel on top. Using the dark green pastel, I'm going to add some vegetation on the top. In many of Monet's lily pond painting, he depicts some whipping willows, which have really nice branches and leaves that kind of fall downwards. So we're going to do the same thing. We have these squiggly lines, not so much as straight as the bottom ones, but there's still spaces in between them. They're longer on the sides. We will use the light green shortly. Using the black pastel, we're going to add a shadow to our bridge. So we are just using a nice thin line on the top of the bridge and on the right edge of each one of the sections that we created earlier. Taking your water-based markers, you're going to draw with the blue marker on the reusable plastic bag or piece of foil that you prepared. Place your brush in the water, and using the marker that you just painted on the bag, start coloring the bottom half of your paper. Now you could see that the more water that you use, the lighter the color will be, and you want it pretty light. Make sure to go over your lily pads with the brush and the blue paint. Don't worry about messing it up, because that's the oil resist part of our project. The oil from the oil pastels will not let the watercolors absorb in the paper. And now let's speed it up. Next, I'm going to use my blue marker directly on the paper. You might find it a little hard to go directly on the paper because of the oil pastels, so just give your marker a wipe every so often. So I'm making a few horizontal lines and adding some blue on the edges of my paper. This is again to kind of create more interest to my work. I'm also adding the blue on the top, the horizon line, which is where my sky and my water meet. I'm now adding some water using my brush to the lines that I just drew. And as I mentioned before, the more water you add, the lighter your lines will be. time for our light green pastel. You're going to add another layer on top of the dark green whipping willow or green thing that we've created earlier. And the next step, we're going to do the same process that we did with the blue water-based marker. We're going to do the same with the green. So I'm using my brush. This looks a little dark, so I'm going to add some water. And I really want it super light so it really doesn't blend with the green that is on top. Okay, everyone, we are finished. The only thing left to do is to autograph our masterpiece and enjoy. Please make sure to share your creations, and thank you so much for watching.